This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
It's really easy to have that firewall, like you say, the iron curtain, really easy to separate the two. I think it's important to not think of it as an iron curtain, though. I think you need to look at it as it's like one of those pony walls, the walls that go halfway. You want to divide it clearly into two areas, but you also want to talk. And I think if you're not talking and communicating over the top and having awareness, having transparency, I like that idea of the half wall where you can see over the top. You're staying in your area, but you can see what's happening. And you have to be cognizant of that.
This is Small Press, Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press, Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. All right. My guest today for the podcast is Brandon Mercer. Brandon is the Vice President of Ad Product Integrated Solutions at Hearst, and he's got a background in kind of local media and the media space going back a long time, so we can talk about that. Brandon, nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to be here. Great to talk with you, Paul.
Yeah. I kind of start every podcast the same, and it's our first time meeting. If you could just give myself and the audience a little background on you, your career in local media and just kind of set the stage like that, I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I generally describe myself as a TV news leader who moved into product. My career, I guess I began in journalism in junior high school. I started on the school paper, and I knew I wanted to do this. Like some people I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I was always going to be into journalism. I did the school paper in high school, did broadcast at USC because I thought, well, broadcast probably reaches more people, which, at the time, that's where it was going. Today, I think digital and social are the places. But always been excited about newsrooms and the idea of communicating complex concepts to people. Worked in TV news for almost 20 years, moved to digital at CBS Local, doing KPIX TV and the 4 CBS radio stations here in San Francisco. Then went to SF Gate. I was running SF Gate as the role was, they called it executive producer, but it was basically editor-in-chief and also kind of biz development, general manager, making partnerships and things for the site. And then moved into product during the pandemic, where I became part of the corporate team, working with all of our 80 different Hearst newspaper properties. And the title is weird, right? Ad Product Integrated Solutions. What that meant at Hearst is working on the things that are outside display advertising, special sections, did a lot of real estate work, building the products we needed. I worked on the Best Of program. We have 42 Best Of contests across all of Hearst newspapers, and a lot of those have events involved with them. And then my team has been doing over 500 articles that tie into that. So that's what Integrated Solutions was kind of the intersection of audience, revenue, engagement, and our mission.
Excellent. And yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about your role at Hearst, which you told me a little bit about, and I'm glad you said, kind of commented on the actual title, because when I read, let me pull it up again. Sorry. Vice President of Ad Product Integrated Solutions. I was like, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but you explained it pretty well there. Could you dive into that a little more? Like, kind of what's your day-to-day look like? What are you thinking about? Could you just dive into that a little deeper than you did there? Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how we pick titles, right? There's a title you want to tell other people. Like when I said SF Gate, my title was executive producer, but what that meant was editor-in-chief. But we couldn't use editor-in-chief at the time because the Chronicle and SF Gate were these different groups trying to figure out their mission. Today, I think it's a little more clear that SF Gate and the Chronicle have split into two newsrooms. So same thing with Ad Product Integrated Solutions. That title was chosen more for internal purposes to say, this is ad product related, but it's not going to do I call them the rectangles. Not doing the rectangles that we put in print and the rectangles we put on the website. That wasn't me. The idea was Integrated Solutions was all the other stuff where the clients come and they say, do you have event listings? Yeah, we have sponsored event listings we can do. And so I did event listings, which were editorial for all the markets. We have these event listings on all the pages. But in addition to the utility provided for the reader, we also have sponsored event listings. So I would integrate those two, which is why I said it was both working on the editorial side of things that are useful for readers, and then working on the sales side of, well, how do we put enhanced listings into that? So whether it's events or whether it's these best of programs where we have it's like 525 articles where we say, the best lawyer in San Francisco, the best chiropractor in Houston, the best personal injury lawyer in Connecticut. We have all those articles, and then we have it's editorial content with enhanced listings for sponsors on there. So that's what I've been overseeing. My day to day is a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of email, a lot of answering questions about things. But after that's done, it's managing the products and making sure that they're driving revenue and driving engagement. SEO and AIO, or you might call it GEO, are a big part of that too.
Excellent. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff, and I think a lot of the audience is kind of professionals in media, local media. It's what I target, but all media.
Right.
But you said you kind of straddle like editorial and like what buyers are actually looking for, advertisers are looking for, like kind of you were talking about there, and I'm curious for this audience, for like people working. One of the themes on the show a lot has been like the firewall between the business side and editorial, which has always been there, and it's kind of disintegrating a little bit as we go forward, and it needs to, especially with like smaller small town newspapers and stuff like that. You just need to be thinking both ways. Do you have any like, if you were talking to somebody on an editorial team, is there anything maybe that like people coming to you to make ad buys are asking you for that the editorial team maybe isn't thinking about? Does that question make sense? I just kind of came up with it as you were talking, and it sounds like you might have some opinions on it. Yeah.
I think it's a really good question, Paul. I think that's what newsrooms are struggling with across the board. You have legacy newsrooms, and when I say legacy, I mean newspaper, digital, broadcast, and radio. And then you have these modern newsrooms. I was just reading a newsletter by Jim Louderback, by the way. Must read. If you haven't read Jim Louderback's newsletter on the content creator economy, he's brilliant. He used to be my boss at Tech TV, so I'm familiar with Jim. But I was looking at this bifurcation of content, and I don't know if content creators are journalists. I think some are. Some don't really know how to spell journalism.
Yeah,
we have that challenge, and the content creators are they're everything. Like you said, with small town properties, when you're the publisher and the reporter and the editorial board and the salesperson and the marketing team and the circulation desk, you have to blur the lines because you don't have anybody else to delegate it to. And that's what content creators are. And I think in small cities, small local news, even like if you're the news director in Eugene, Oregon, you're probably also the 10 p.m. anchor, and you might be really involved with sales too. You have to wear a lot of hats. I have some family in Imperial, Nebraska. It's a very small town. A beautiful town, great people. And everybody there wears so many hats. They do 6 different jobs. I met the publisher of the newspaper in Imperial, Nebraska, and they're writing articles too. So how do you deal with that? And I would say, first of all, make sure you're aware of this and you're thinking about it. If you're in a really big newsroom like I've been in San Francisco or Sacramento, yeah, we have people that do sales, we have people that do news. It's really easy to have that firewall, like you say, the iron curtain, really easy to separate the two. I think it's important to not think of it as an iron curtain, though. I think you need to look at it as it's like one of those pony walls, the walls that go halfway. You want to divide it clearly into 2 areas, but you also want to talk. And I think if you're not talking and communicating over the top and having awareness, having transparency, I like the idea of the half wall where you can see over the top. You're staying in your area, but you can see what's happening. And you have to be cognizant of that. As I said, content creators are doing both sides. In the bigger newsrooms, I think it's important to look at the other side. And a lot of the teaching I do, whether it's at conventions or I do some lecturing at UC Berkeley, we talk about the business of journalism. And when you understand the business of journalism, you understand, what's happening with my role. Am I going to get laid off? Is my company going to get acquired? You have to understand the business of journalism and have some pragmatism. And I think if you're a legacy newsroom that doesn't have that pragmatism and isn't thinking about it, you're going to be surprised by things. That was a long answer to your question. You also asked, what should we be looking at too?
Yeah. That was a great answer. It's funny you brought up, did you say a family member in Imperial, Nebraska?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, it's a
yeah,
beautiful city. They run a B&B in Imperial, Nebraska.
I was in Benkelman, Nebraska yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
It's like one of the next set. Yeah, my niece was graduating from high school and she had a track meet and everything.
That's so
I'm
cool.
in Western Colorado. I was just there. It's like, that's crazy. Well, I think my in-laws were just traveling through there like 2 days ago. It's a beautiful part of the country.
It really is, and I love small towns because it's so different than what we're used to in the metros, and you see so many different ways of doing things. And I really wanted to do this program where you bring journalists from like a large city to a small city and bring the small city journalists to the big city. I was making this
Yeah.
proposal to do some funding to do like 5 of these across the nation because it opens your mind so much to see, number one, the fact that the reporter is also laying out the ads. You have to share those jobs because there's 3 employees.
Yeah.
But also just to see the mindset of a smaller city, I think it's great.
Yeah, I was, like I said, I was just there. My brother-in-law's like the football coach in small town Nebraska, so they're really plugged in with the community. And their good friend, he came over like to the graduation party. And I was like, "Oh, hey Ben, I know him." I'm like, "How's it going, man?" He's like, "Oh yeah, this was my grandpa's house, and then I sold it to my cousin, and it's an Airbnb now." I'm like, "Oh, crazy!" And he runs like the coffee shop downtown and a manufacturing company in town,
Right.
and he helps Mike out with some of the coaching stuff. It's exactly what you said. I think that's a really cool idea.
3 jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I like that idea of taking people. It might help with some of the political divides in this country too. If you got people from the cities and vice versa, that's a different podcast. But
Yeah. Well, if you want to help me work on that, I definitely could use some people. But I think it's a great program.
that'd be great.
But Paul, can I answer the other part of your question?
Yes, absolutely. I jumped in there. Sorry. Go, please.
Yeah. Well, I gave you a really long answer, but you also were asking what are areas that are blind spots.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. From the client side, because I got to move from editorial to the client side, clients are always looking for something that's aligned. So the biggest increase in marketing budgets is not buying display ads. It's looking for integrated solutions, which also happens to be my title. They're looking for ways to be involved with these groups that have large audiences. So at Hearst, we have something called this Best of program. Best of Bay Area is a big one that I get to see firsthand because I'm based in San Francisco. Last year, they rented out Chase Center where the Warriors play. And we have the basketball court and all these people coming in to celebrate being voted the best business in their group. So your clients love to be involved in something that's beyond that. They get to take the picture on the red carpet. They get to have their name in print because there's a print version of that. It's in digital also where they can show that they're the best. They can put a logo up in their business that says we were voted best of Bay Area. So I think opportunities like that where it's tying something to an editorial brand back to the business in a way that's useful to the audience, useful to the business, and also drives engagement for the site. And you get emails too. When people vote on these things, you get their email too. So it's this great synergy. I really love the program, and I think it's really smart to have programs like that.
Yeah. It's I agree. People love seeing their name in print, being involved like that. It's something maybe not everybody thinks about. I don't want to misquote this. I had somebody on the podcast. I think it was Jonathan Keeling from the Institute for Nonprofit News. And he was saying like kind of I think it was him. I hope I don't say it. I'll have to look back before I edit this. He was saying like the dirty secret of the newspaper industry is, a lot of journalists, they want this hard hitting, investigative, transparency journalism. Right. He's like, people come for the weather and like the high school sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they want to see like, and then they'll see that other stuff and come in there. But
yeah. Well, one thing we were always looking at when I was running SF Gate, we were looking at the homepage and we said people want to see hard news on the homepage. Mm-hmm. Because they feel like they're informed. So we'll put like the hard political stories, at least when I was the editor, we put these hard political stories there and budget stories, all the stuff that you felt like you needed to know. But we didn't always expect people to click into them. Mm-hmm. The idea was they're there, you read the headline, you get an idea of what's happening. You don't necessarily need to read that. You want to maybe go a little more in depth on the fascinating story. And as journalists, it's great if we can make the really important, democracy kind of stories, making decisions about elections. We can make those interesting and engaging, great. But at the same time, at least have them on the page. And if people at least read the headline, they're somewhat informed, and maybe they'll go deeper on, the best $5 tacos in the city, which is fine. There's a place in journalism for that too. But we were seeing that just having the headlines up there, or in a newsletter too, putting a paragraph about, an important issue in the election in your newsletter is important, and people will at least read the paragraph. Maybe they won't click through to the article, but at least you have them somewhat informed. And then you have all the other stuff that brings them in with these fascinating stories.
Yeah. And I don't know if I've mentioned it, but I'm pretty familiar. I had Grant Merrick from SF Gate on the podcast, and so if anybody listening wants to go and have a listen about that organization, that's also a really good. That was really cool. I remember him telling me that they have the beat writers for the national parks, and they had one for Disney for a while. I was like, I want to come work for you, Grant. I want to go get paid to go to Disneyland every so often and everything, but the interest stuff and the political pieces and everything too.
Yeah, Grant's a brilliant editor. He followed me as editor and expanded into some of those beats. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
SF Gate under Grant's leadership has been doing, like you said, Disney parks, that kind of thing. When I was there, I added areas that we thought were important, like weather and grocery coverage. And Grant's kept the weather and grocery coverage going, added the other ones. It's these things that are really important to everybody. Like you were saying, people want to check what the weather is and know how big is the storm going to be. They want to know, how come my favorite item disappeared from Costco or Trader Joe's.
Right.
And they also need to know about issues in an election, but the order in which people want to read those stories is might not be what every journalist wishes it were.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to go a little out of order in the questions I sent you because it seems kind of relevant here. Kind of talking about that, the blind spots between editorial and that. And you have a focus on integrated ad solutions. Is that what it was? I have to keep looking it up here. The actual title there. So if you were talking, because you're at Hearst, it's a big organization, with lots of local outlets. I'm curious, from where you're sitting, if you had any advice for, say, a smaller, say the small town newspaper we're talking about, a smaller local media operator. Where if you were in their shoes, where would you have your attention focused in terms of revenue opportunities in 2026 and this really quickly evolving space that we're in right now?
Yeah, if you're a small town publisher, and I'm assuming you mean digital and print.
Yeah, I mean everybody's digital pretty much these days.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Versus like radio or TV.
Because that's what I was thinking.
Radio TV answer would be slightly different.
Okay.
I think if you're a small town publisher, I would say the most important areas to put your focus and expand your reach on would be email, text messaging, and events. Maybe in that order. I think they're just so essential because you can't control how many people come to your website. We've tried to game SEO. We tried to get Facebook to drive people to us, but we don't control those things. Email you control. Text messaging you control. And events, you can't make people show up to your event, but if it's a good event, they will show up. And those are things that put the audience and the reach back in the hands of the journalists. And I think that's the absolute most important thing. And it aligns really well with what your clients want. Your clients don't want to buy an ad on a website that has declining readership. So all of news sites, everybody has declining readership because is giving answers through AI. Google and Bing and the search engines are giving you these zero-click answers where you get the answer right in your search results. You don't need to click through to the page. So what do you do to make sure you have an audience that wants to engage with you? And to me, I consume most of my news consumption is email. I get a bunch of daily newsletters and I wake up at 6 and I read through those while I'm having my coffee. I think that's essential. So email's great. And then text messaging. I think text messaging is so underutilized. If you think about your phone, I'm on the phone all the time. And when I get a text alert, that is, I tell people, if you need to reach me right away, text me. Because no matter what I'm doing, the text always gets through. So news organizations being able to use text messaging as a tool for engagement and to drive people to their site, or even just have text messaging as the sole engagement. You don't even have to go to the website. You can put ads in the text message. You can have full dialogues. The San Francisco Chronicle has this really cool weather text where they're sending you information about what's happening. There's a big heat wave coming up and here's why there's a heat wave coming up. You can actually respond to them and say, well, why is it going to be so hot? Or why was it so cold last week and hot this week? And they'll respond to you. There's this great two-way journalism going on there. And having sponsors and those kind of things, I think is is brilliant. And then with events, I see like KQED in the Bay Area is built a huge event space into their headquarters. The Chronicle's been doing events. As I said, we have these best of events that I'm involved with at Hearst Newspapers. There's 42 of them, and most of them have an in-person event. It's revenue, but it's also this sense of being connected to this news organization that you know and love. And then you get to meet the editors and the reporters. I think those events are just so essential. So I would say do events, email, and text messaging, no matter if you're a small publisher or a big publisher.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
That's interesting. I've heard email and events a million times on this podcast, and I agree. Yeah. But SMS, that's. Have you done any like experiments or?
Yeah,
that's some interesting takes. Could you talk about that a little more? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was running digital at CBS Local, we had a massive text message following at KCBS, and we started doing it with the Bay Bridge when it was closed down for various reasons during construction. We did it with earthquakes. So we used that breaking news text alert system at least twice a week. And to me, it's like, well, if the Bay Bridge is shut down or the BART tube under the bay is shut down, that's like, I need to know right now. I don't want to like read that in my morning email. I don't want to like find out when I get in my car to drive home. I need that information immediately. So text messaging was absolutely critical, and KCBS built a really brilliant way to do that. Another good guest for you, Jennifer Seelig at KCBS. She'd be a wonderful guest for this podcast because she's overseen that. At Hearst Newspapers, we started doing a lot of text messaging out of San Antonio and Houston. Built a really big following during the hurricanes there, so you could say what's happening. Hurricane has upgraded to whatever category, that kind of thing. And that was just a great way to engage people with urgent journalism at the time. I think there's no better way to do that. So if you don't have a way to connect with your audience via phone, you're really not doing good service journalism. If there's an emergency, you have no way to get your story into their hands quickly. So it's almost like, how can you call yourself a journalist covering emergencies in your community if you can't text message people? Because email's fine, sure, but text messaging is faster than email. So I think everybody needs a text messaging solution. Hearst has been testing it through the editorial team. We've been looking at ways to sponsor it. KCBS has a great one. There's a lot of different companies out there that are offering this too. Trumpia, Trumpia is one that we used at Hearst. Subtext, I believe, is the other one. But yeah, these having a company like that can work with you and build these solutions is great. Sailthrough, we use Sailthrough as a email solution, and a lot of those email servers can also do a text messaging.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So, if my commute, my train or the bridge is out, like you said, I of course want to text. That would be super helpful to me as a consumer, whatever you want to call me, an audience member. Have you seen by chance, like, I also am very annoyed when companies of any type text me way too much. Have you seen like a line there at all? Or do you have any thoughts about that? Yeah. Is it kind of just for those like breaking alerts and stuff like that? Or
yeah, you're totally right with that, to ask that question, because you can abuse this. And the worst thing is when you abuse it, not only are you annoying people, but you also get unsubscribes. And that's the worst.
Yeah.
So one thing when I was at CBS, we knew every single time we sent a text message, we knew we were going to get a few unsubscribes. So there was a debate like, okay, there's a 4.0 earthquake. That's not really big, but if it's under a large city, everybody wants to know about it right away. If it was far away and few people felt it, they probably don't want to get text messaged about it.
Right.
So if it was under San Francisco, we would text message about a 4.0 earthquake. That's not going to cause any damage, but everybody wants to know, was that small and here, or was it a big one somewhere else?
Right.
So you got to tell people.
Gotcha.
And you get maybe 5, 10 unsubscribes. Okay, that's fine. And you build those back up throughout the week as you remind people to subscribe to text messaging. If you did something like, I remember we did some sports ones, like, the Giants win the World Series. Ooh, stop texting me this. I know, I'm already watching.
Right.
People don't need to know sports score. In fact, some people I haven't watched the game yet. I was waiting until I got home to watch the game.
Yeah,
so
that'd be tough.
Yeah, I would say Don't text message about sports scores. Text message about like a riot after they won the world championship. Like that's a thing. But yeah, you got to be really cautious with that. I would say monitoring your KPIs is huge. So, what are your expected unsubscribe rates? And just from a benchmark, these are not hard things to set up, especially now with the days of AI. Set up what a good benchmark is and decide whether to send that alert based on what your benchmarks are. A 1% unsubscribe is a lot. Maybe a 0.1% unsubscribe is acceptable. So come up with what's right for your group. But if news outlets can get, let's say 10% of the market subscribe to text alerts, that's an unbelievably powerful win. A lot of markets will have half of 1% or even a tenth of 1% of their market subscribed. So that there's an area for growth there. And I think more news organizations are starting to get this and understand it. I certainly know everybody else is doing this. My healthcare companies are doing it. My dentist office texts me. Well, if the dentist can text you, maybe your favorite news outlet should text you as well.
Yeah. It's useful. It is, I think. And this is sparked. I'm going to get somebody on to talk about this who spends their head in it all day. I have young kids. I have 4-year-old twins, and I get texts from their preschool about hey, there's a stomach flu going around, or just like pictures of them doing something hilarious or something like that. And even it's used sparingly enough. It's super useful. And
the trick is to use it sparingly. I think the weather one is really interesting because everybody needs to know about weather. You have to offer something though. You can't just say, hey, it's going to get hot tomorrow. But you can say it's getting hot tomorrow because of a new trend that's caused by climate change. And we're going to see more heat waves. Now that's a good story. And maybe worth texting people, especially if your message is public safety. Like there's going to be a heat wave tomorrow. Check on older relatives who may not have air conditioning, that kind of thing. That can be pretty useful.
Very cool. So you talked about AI there a little bit, and even in our little interlude, which won't make it into the podcast, we kind of use it to look up the name of a company and everything. So I'll get into the AI question. I'm curious how you're thinking about AI, how you're using it. Everybody has a different answer on this one. So I'd like to hear just kind of your overall thoughts on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Just this morning, I read a new survey about the state of journalism from Muckrack. And they surveyed 1,044 journalists. They asked about AI, and it was really fascinating to see the results. What I found interesting was not how it was reported, which was 82% of journalists are using AI. I took it the other way and said 18% are not using AI. What? So I can't talk about Hearst newspaper's editorial. That you'd have to talk to the editorial team about that. But I can tell you, for example, I'm on the team working on an AI ethics policy for RTDNA, the Radio Television Digital News Association. And as we're looking at AI ethics, we're realizing, number one, all newsrooms seem to have a different way of looking at it. Some are completely all in and using AI everywhere. Others are not using AI at all, which is also what was reinforced by this Muckrack survey that came out today, or came out that I read today. The fact that 18% are not using AI, to me, is like, saying that 18% of accountants are not using calculators. To me, it's just like the most basic tool. And yeah, it's scary. And yeah, it can do bad things. But if you use it correctly, it can be a force multiplier, and it can help with copy editing. It can help spot bias in what you're writing. I saw a GPT where someone uploaded a lot of style books on racism and ageism and ableism, and you upload all this data around it, and now this GPT can read your article and tell you if you have anything that might be not inclusive or might be using loaded language. That's super helpful. So yeah, AI makes mistakes. AI can be very racist because it's trained on things that have inherent systemic racism in them. But also AI can be very, very useful when used correctly. So I think it's essential for every newsroom to look at how to use AI. As I say, look at these ethics policies that we hope to publish very soon. There'll be good guides for this. And in the right environment, I think it can be very, very helpful for our Excel files, for data journalism, for parsing large sets of data as a quick copy edit to spot problems with your stories. Super useful with that. Where we get into trouble, I think, is AI generated content. And that to me is the most, that's the third rail. Be super cautious with that. Here's an example. Would you use AI to write a story? or summarize a story that's already written. That's an area that's been a lot of controversy around that. McClatchy is going through that discussion right now. But what about this? What if there was a new football stadium being built in your city? And there aren't any plans for it yet, but you have maybe 2 pictures. So there's 2 pictures to look at, nothing else to really go with. What if you uploaded those 2 pictures to AI and then started to ask questions about it and render some video from there? Would that be acceptable? And within the right guidelines, maybe it would be. Maybe there's a new surgical procedure that is hard to explain, but it's being used on the mayor of your city, and you want to explain what this new surgical procedure is being used on the mayor. There's no video available yet of this. So you make a video and you run it past the doctor, and doctor says, yeah, that's exactly how it works. That's a really great animation. Mm-hmm. Okay, would you use that? Yeah, I think you would probably use that. And I can tell you 3 years ago, it would have taken a team of animators, probably a few days to make that. Now you can make these animations in a matter of seconds. So I think there's a place for it. Just, you got to be careful.
Yeah, there's some interesting examples. That's really good for people in the media industry, though, to think about. I like that. It's with that doctor one is a way of thinking about it.
Yeah, well, speaking with the doctor one, I was thinking about this. Okay, so what if you did use AI to make that doctor doing that? But what if AI assumed the doctor was a white man?
Of course,
okay,
right.
Well, that's a problem, right? So you want to look at those kind of biases, and having a human in the loop doesn't always fix this, because AI will make that. So when you're generating content with AI, if you are doing that surgical procedure, you may tell it, don't have a gender or ethnicity for the doctor. Just show me what the procedure does.
Right.
That's the trick, is to be thinking like this and to realize how to use the tools.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, I was looking at your kind of LinkedIn, and it said that you just mentioned AI solutions and custom GPTs to improve workflows. Do you have any other examples of some custom GPTs that you've worked on or how you're helping workflows? Just one or two, maybe specific. I'd like to hear that. People are so creative with it,
Yeah. There's, I use it for all kinds of things. But I'll give you the simplest example of just a simple tool. Let's say you have an email group that has 80 names on it, and you want to do a list of all those people for some other purpose. You can copy and paste the list of all those names from the email fields, pop it in GPT and say, give me this as a list, but put the first names, then the last names.
Right. Yeah.
That task, if you did it manually, it would probably take you maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If you wrote an Excel formula, and some people are really good at Excel, if you wrote an Excel formula to do it, you could copy it into Excel and do a formula, but you can put it into, I use ChatGPT a lot, put it into ChatGPT, and in less than a second, it formats it for you.
Yep.
So I think just tasks like that, if you think about, what is this task I'm doing? Is it something that I'm really good at doing that needs a human, or is it a stupid repetitive task that a computer can do better? So that's what I like to look for, is what are these stupid repetitive tasks that I can give to the AI and have it do that. Specific examples, we'll have a lot of complex reporting for some of our products, and we can upload a few different files to the GPT and then start asking it questions. So, hey, here's the engagement, here's the search impressions, here's the revenue. Put it all in there. We can say, using just this information, what trends are you seeing? And GPT can do something that humans can't do. It can look at 550 lines, look at all the data from it, and spot trends really quickly. Whereas as a human, you can scan through things. Maybe you can make a chart out of it, and the chart can give you some tools. But a GPT can pull some things to look at. And then the trick is not just do that and say, oh, great, thanks for the idea, I'm going to go run with it. It's no, take what it gives you and say, how can I verify this? How can I prove that is the trend? And you can think of that yourself, obviously, but GPT is pretty good at helping that. So you go back and say, oh, I am seeing that trend. I pulled another report and we saw the same trend. So now you've got some learnings. So I think it's really good at analyzing complex data sets. So those are two simple things, is analyzing complex data, looking at trends over time. Look at the last year of content. What trends are you seeing with growth? What areas are doing well? And you could use that to say, well, we should do more of the areas that do well. Or you can use it the other way and say, why are the areas that are not engaging well? What are those areas, and how can we make them more interesting? It's pretty good for headlines, for SEO. If you want to do that, I would think. And I know a lot of newsrooms do use it for headlines, but just the workflows, I think, taking something complex, mapping it somewhere else, it's fantastic for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I use many of the same kind of things in my own work also. Part of, I do this podcast and I love it, and it helps me connect with people in the industry, but it's not really my work. It's not like a revenue generating part of my work. And I used to spend a couple hours every morning just putting the podcast together, reaching out, writing show notes. And I built a couple GPTs now that helps me
Well,
just like, I've shaved like the time off that in like half. And if you add it up, that's like 15 hours a month when you look at it over something
right.
that, I really enjoy and is, beneficial to me, but it's not like I can use that time somewhere else. I also have, like I said, small kids and a business to run. So
Yeah.
it's very helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. Let me give you two more things I thought were really useful.
Yeah.
If you connect the AI to your calendar and your emails, I found this is just wildly helpful. You can say, hey, how much of my time is being spent on this topic? And you'll go through your calendar and say, oh, you spent 62% of your time on these kind of things. I think that's really helpful. And then connecting it to your emails, if you have access to saved email, or if you can archive your saved emails. I know some companies delete emails every 90 days. But if you save all your emails, it can go back and say, oh, you've been talking about this issue over the past 5 years. Here's kind of some of the contacts you have, or here's where the discussion's been going. Like, that's something that's almost impossible to do as a regular human, but AI looking back through 5 years of email, instant, no problem. And it surfaces these things. You're like, oh yeah, that's the company we were talking to, or that was the idea we had. Maybe now's the time to go back and do that.
Yeah.
So it's just like this layer on top of it, like having an assistant to help you out.
That's how I view it. It's kind of my unpaid employee. Actually, I spend the $20 a month now, so it's not entirely unpaid.
Yeah, it's worth the $20 a month or so.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. I've been asking everybody this question, and it's very difficult to answer, I think. But if you were to flash forward 5 years, I'd like to see where you see yourself, first of all, but also just where you see the kind of local news industry. Because, the last topic we talked about, AI, things are changing rapidly, and people think it could be going all kinds of different directions. But I'd like to get your take on it and see what your thoughts are and what you'll be doing as well.
Yeah. Ooh, do you want the dystopian answer or the hopeful answer?
Of course, yeah. I'm looking for downloads, man. Let's hear the dystopian one, too.
Yeah. So I'll give you two answers. The dystopian answer would be AI slop becomes much less sloppy and gets better and better, and we start to have AI content everywhere, and people start to trust it and like it. That's my biggest fear, because I think there's a problem with that. But I think that's very, very likely to happen, and there's things we need to do to combat it. So transitioning to the optimistic utopian version of this, I think in the utopian version, newsrooms are figuring out how to use AI and are amplifying and growing what they do so that they can be stronger brands and have brand hegemony to combat the AI slop. And we start to see that, these real news brands are actually more interesting and better than the AI generated stuff. And I think there's kind of a war that's going to go on between journalism, which is checked by editors and meets certain standards, and AI junk, which is not. And I'm hoping that legacy journalism will realize content creators are necessary and have reporters be content creators, realize that's the path, and make stuff that is so engaging and so interesting that it can beat out the AI-generated stuff and create these real engagements with newsrooms. To do that, they're going to have email and text messaging, I think, and events, and content creators. That would be the other thing to add. If news brands have content creators on their staff that are putting out journalistically sound content across social media and on their websites, I think that's the utopian future, and I hope we get to that one.
Me too. Well said. I had Pete Patchell on the podcast. He's in the media space, and the AI co-pilot is his podcast and company. Nice. And his take, he's like, over the next 5 years, his prediction was that PR firms and anybody that can generate trust for like media organizations are going to be an absolute boom because as the AI slop gets better and everything like that. Owning that audience, and he kind of spoke to some things in there, building that trust, and I'm on the utopian side. I'm just an optimist. So, and what else are you gonna do but be an optimist? Yeah, great stuff. Brandon, I think we've run right up to time here, but where can people find you online? Anything you want me to link to or promote? I'll link to some of the stuff we mentioned in the conversation there too. But where can people find you?
Yeah, I try to have conversations about all this stuff on my LinkedIn page. I've been trying to be a little bit of a content creator there because I think there's a need for it. So, find me on LinkedIn, Brandon Mercer, and let's keep the discussion going. Let's keep the ideas going. I'll share this podcast on my LinkedIn. I'm writing a LinkedIn post right now about AI and some ways to improve your newsroom's use of it and to improve it for the business of journalism. It'd be great to have people connect there.
Excellent. I will link to that. And yeah, you're a good follow. I didn't mention that in the call, but been going through some of your stuff, and there's some really good ones. And there's no M dashes or any of the hallmarks of AI slop in any of Brandon's posts. I can attest to that. All right, Brandon, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. And yeah, have a great day.
Great talking with you, Paul. Thanks for the work you do.
Yep, thanks. Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.
Uncovered windows can make your home feel up to 20 degrees hotter. Stay cool and save up to 50% off custom window treatments during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com. From outdoor shades to room darkening blinds, finding the perfect fit is easy. Get free samples, expert design help, and professional measure and install services. Or DIY with confidence and support every step of the way. Shop up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge savings on doorbusters right now during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com.